15 months ago, I committed the next 15 years of my life to the pursuit of self mastery and the goal of building a 9-figure business. Regarding self mastery, I was starting as a man who was very prone to weakness, self deception, and addiction. Regarding my business, I was starting from nothing. Welcome to Documenting the Climb, the series in which I am documenting every success, failure, and lesson learned during the pursuit. To aid me in this process, I have created a system to both quantify and gamify progression. So, looking at this system, I am going to just do an overview of the progression that I have experienced over the course of the last 3 months. So, I have broken the progression I'm tracking into 4 different categories: my work input, my finances, my positive habits, and my negative habits. Starting with my work input, this was an area where I was struggling. I'd say for the 12 months leading up to this 3-month period, this was probably one of my biggest areas of inconsistency. And so my goal for this quarter was simply consistency. And I was going to try to develop this by reducing the expectation and focusing on following through on a very easy expectation up front and slowly increasing that. And that strategy was extremely successful for me. Looking at my full intended days, I worked 82 of 84. I worked my full intended hours on 82 of 84 days. With my overall job hours, the goal was to hit 463 hours worked for the quarter. I ended up hitting 595. And more importantly, progress theory hours are the things that matter most at this point in time. That is the business I'm actually trying to build, the career I'm trying to work into. And so I hit 178 of the 119 goal, which was 50%, almost 50% over the goal, which is huge. This was an amount of consistency that I really wanted to hit, but starting slow and reducing the expectation up front led to far more hours worked than I would have predicted. And the rate of growth in this category was huge over the quarter. The next category is finances, which finances were fairly stagnant overall. My savings percentage was very good. As you can see, looking at the cash flow here, the goal for the quarter was $5,000 in cash flow. The actual amount that was hit was $10,000. Made over $19,000 post-tax, spent less than $9,000 and my personal expenses. So the savings rate was great. I spent a lot of money on the business and pretty much generated no money. But the actual income itself was fairly stagnant over the quarter, just because the thing that's going to boost my income at this point in time is generating real revenue in the business. And I have still yet to generate any sort of substantial revenue and get the business model up and running. So it's not bad by any means, but feels pretty stagnant. Progressive behavior. This was the area I saw the most success in 2025. Over the course of 12 months, I built the most consistency in this area. These are foundational habits, and I've started focusing upfront on habits that will create growth physiologically with my physical health, mental health, and emotional health. I'm going to move more into the intellectual development and the financial development later on once I have my physiology very locked down. But the success I saw in the last quarter continued into this one. I increased the difficulty gradually by adding in more habits. And over the course of the quarter, I aimed to complete 560 habits. I completed 539 of them for an overall completion percentage of 96%. I only missed my goal in one area, which was nutrition, which I would argue is the most difficult to hit. It requires the most discipline and upkeep throughout the day. Still hit 86% in that area, so I'm still feel good about that. But overall, for this category, I pretty much just maintained the standard of excellence that I began to hit in the last quarter. That felt phenomenal, I would say. And regressive behaviors that compound against me in a negative way. This is the category where I would say I've seen the most growth in this quarter. I had almost perfect scores in every single regard. And specifically, I want to focus on porn and sex addiction because that is the thing that has caused the most destruction in my life since I was 12 years old. I have not been able to escape this since I was 12 years old. This is the first quarter since I was 12 in which I watched no porn and interacted with the sex addiction in no way. I overcame 24 of 24 urges, so 100% success rate at overcoming the urges to act out. This is huge to me. I cannot describe how much pain this behavior caused in my life, how much destruction it created. Breaking free of this was the thing that started progress theory. It was the thing that stopped me from killing myself because of this behavior was the idea that I could learn how to overcome it and learn how to help other people overcome addiction too. And to see that I'm starting to really learn how to do that. And not to say this is not proof, or this is not proof that I've figured it out, that I know how to resolve addiction. But it is proof that the system is effective. And not only am I confident in my ability to steer clear of behaviors that I don't want to engage in and overcome urges for aggressive behaviors, but I'm very confident in my ability to learn from failure and when I act out to realign myself very quickly and be better for it. The sense of freedom I feel from that is one of the best things I've ever felt in my life. And not only that, but I spent a long time absolutely terrified that my entire life was just going to be a constant battle against temptation because for years my life either completely consisted of self-destructing because of regressive behaviors or putting all of my time, effort, and energy into not self-destructing. And so either way, my life was consumed by these things. And the idea that I was going to have to spend my entire life fighting this, the idea that is touted in a lot of addiction recovery ideologies and treatments, that you are an addict forever and you will constantly fight these urges, that made me want to die. And I truly believed change is possible to where it's not just you have to resist constantly, but you can fundamentally change the human brain so that addiction is no longer a struggle. And this is evidence to me that that is true because over the course of 3 months, only experiencing 24 urges that had far less intensity than the urges I used to experience. That's I don't know the exact number here, but that is at least a 66% reduction in frequency of urges. And all of them were far less intense. They were very easy to deal with and overcome. And what that reveals to me is over time, the more distance you get from a behavior that you're trying to eliminate, the less it consumes your life. It becomes something that you don't even identify with anymore. You don't have to fight against. It just can get removed. And again, that just goes back to this sense of freedom and confidence in my resiliency and strength has never been higher. And I'm very excited to see what that looks like moving forward, the growth it creates in my life moving forward. So overall, in every category, I would say that I've tracked out my progression. I've attached a score and different mechanics to the scoring process so that every category has a score. I'm constantly competing against myself so that every week I'm trying to get a higher score. Every month I'm trying to get a higher score. And over the course of the quarter, you can see from the chart that the area where I saw by far the most growth was work input over the 3 months. My progressive behaviors were fairly stagnant, but overall grew a little bit, and progressive behavior, regressive behavior were stagnant in their rate of growth, but they were all above zero. And so there was no actual regression occurring. In every category, I was improving. My overall score for the quarter went from starting at 12,000 roughly for the month. My last month, I ended around 20,000. The trend line is very positive. I'm very excited at the progression that I am seeing start to develop in my life. For the first, I'd say, 12 months of this experience, I said this is 15 months now where I've really been trying to reinvent myself and build a better life. For the first 12 months, progress felt very slow and it felt difficult. And it was tangible, it was real. Every quarter I'd get to the end, I'd feel like I had improved. But this is the first quarter where I'm really seeing the compounding effect of my efforts start to take off. And it no longer feels like I'm pushing against momentum, and instead it is pushing against me and carrying me forward at a exponentially increasing rate, which is very exciting because the whole goal of progress theory is creating systems to help human beings transform that are universally effective at helping human beings transform, create better lives, create more fulfilling lives. And up until this quarter, I would say I believed that my current understanding of how to transform a human being was effective and had validity, but it was entirely theory. I had not tested it to see if it worked. I had not put in the time to see if it worked. And so while I had confidence, I had no proof of concept. And I am far from having figured out how to do this. I think I have a tremendous amount of room for growth in my understanding and my ability, but this is the first time where the theory has been tested and it's worked. And that is incredibly exciting for me. So that is a quarter, went very well. I am very excited about it. So I'm excited to see how it compounds moving forward. The next thing I'm going to do is just highlight the 3 biggest lessons I would say I learned from my experiences this quarter in hopes that they can help provide some value to you. And the 2 action steps I'm taking, one in business and one in self-mastery, the 2 areas of prioritization moving forward to try to create the most growth in this next quarter. The first lesson that I would say I learned this quarter is that negative emotions should always be framed as an opportunity to increase one's ability for mindfulness, detachment, emotional resiliency, and story and belief restructuring. I think I've spent a lot of my life trying to fight against emotions at a very deep level. I have tried to optimize my life in a way to where I never have to experience discomfort. I never have to experience negative emotions. And that attempt to remove negative emotions from my life was the core driver behind my addictive behavior, my obsession with growth. It caused a lot of damage for me. And when I've looked at my experiences this quarter, that process has still been there, where I am trying to optimize my life in such a thorough way that negative emotions are no longer present. And that is delusional. Negative emotions will always be present. A lot of the time, the emotion is a result of something that we can remove from our environment. A lot of the time, the emotion is not a result of anything in our environment. It's instead the story we're telling ourselves and the expectation we're putting on reality around us. There's a lot of different strategies for reducing the amount of negative emotions we experience. But at the end of the day, we will always have to deal with uncomfortable internal states. That is a part of the human condition. There is no way to remove that from life. But framing those undesirable experiences as opportunities to become more resilient, are more mindful, more present, more open to difficult emotions, there is real opportunity there. Opportunity to learn how to let go. And I want to start seeing negative emotions as a genuine opportunity to improve my ability to just accept what is and let it go. The second lesson I would say that came out of this quarter was how important prioritization is when it comes to time allocation. Now that I've started to put more time into my business consistently, I'm working every day on moving forward with this. The concept of time as a resource has become very pressing to me. I see more clearly than ever that time is the most valuable resource that we have. And it is also very limited. It is finite. And if we have a finite resource, in order to get the most out of it, it needs to be allocated very deliberately into the thing that provides the highest rate of return. And there's an infinite options of things we can put our time into. And so trying to not only select a series of things that are deemed most important and most likely to get you where you want to go if you put time into them, but taking that list and curating it down to one thing that is the highest rate of return, that creates the most universal benefit and growth in your life, and pouring your time into that one thing. That concept is kind of taking over for me right now, where not only is time limited, but focus and energy is limited too. And so putting all of that, channeling it all into the one thing that will create the most growth, and doing that over and over and over again, seems to be the thing that compounds into massive changes over the course of years and decades. The last lesson that I would say I took out of this quarter has to do with beliefs and identity change. I have spent a lot of time in the last 15 months since I started this process trying to change the foundational beliefs that have caused a lot of damage to me over the course of my lifetime. For me specifically, these were an obsessive attachment to outcomes and trying to control what outcomes I experienced in my life, trying to control my internal state through growth, thinking that if I just grew enough, then I could escape all of the negative emotions that I didn't want to deal with, and a performance-based self-worth, to where the way I viewed myself, the way I valued myself, was entirely dependent on how I was performing in alignment with very extreme perfectionistic standards. And it caused a lot of damage for me. And so I've been very intentional and deliberate about changing those beliefs. And yet they still pop up in very ugly ways fairly frequently. And during this quarter, I've seen significant growth. They definitely are impacting me less than they once did, but they still rear up. They still cause damage. I find myself falling back into the same rational and emotional patterns that reveal them to still be there. And there have been points where I get really angry at it, and I get angry at myself for falling into the same patterns and for not having overcome the beliefs yet. And I think the lesson is just, it takes time. Like, it takes a long time. It's not months, it's years, or if not decades. Who I was, those foundational beliefs that caused so much damage, were the result of 25 years of experience that had been reinforcing those beliefs. The thought that I can just fundamentally change myself at a foundational level in months when it took 25 years of experience to solidify who I was is just delusional. And so there's no reason to be angry. This is just a process that will take a lifetime, and that is okay. Like when I find myself getting angry at how long it's taking to change the beliefs and the identity structure that I have developed, just let it go. There's no reason to be angry. Accept the process, accept it as a lifelong process. So, those are the three core lessons I would say I learned in this quarter. Hopefully, there's something of value there that you can apply to your own life that can that connects to you. Now, last thing I'm going to go over in this video is the highest ROI change I want to make in my approach to business and my approach to self-mastery. I tried to do a deep dive into my experiences this quarter, into the data, into all my journal entries, and figure out what is the thing holding me back the most, what one change could create the most growth. When it comes to self-mastery, I identified the one thing that I think would create the most growth is creating an iterative process that I can run through on a weekly basis to identify what the most beneficial action step I can take is on a week-to-week basis to see more improvement. I think I have spent a lot of time throughout my life just learning a lesson and not actually acting on that lesson. And so it takes me months to change in a way that could have taken me a week if I just would have thought through my experiences and turned that into a tangible action plan to shift my behavior. And that is something I really want to change. I think if I can learn how to every single week pull insight from my experiences, turn that insight into a plan of action and measure that so that every single week I am improving in one major way that has been deliberately chosen because it has the highest impact, the growth that will create over the course of months and years is substantial, life-changing. And I think refining that process, that is a process that can be applied to every other area of my life. So that seems like the highest ROI change in self-mastery. When it comes to business, I've spent 15 months now building Progress Theory as a business, and I've generated no real revenue. I have spent a lot of time for the first 12 months. Almost all of my time was devoted to understanding the mechanics of growth, learning how to apply them to my own life, building systems in order to help me improve. And when I look at the outcome of that, like when I look at my metrics this quarter, it is very clear that that has worked, that's been effective. The goal was to test the systems and the ideas on myself so I can prove that they work before testing them on other people. And while that has been beneficial, it's become very obvious to me that having a sample size of one is ineffective and is limiting the improvements I can make to these systems. If I get more people to run through them and to test them with me, that is more data that I can use to improve how things work. And so the thing that will really create growth at this point is focusing on the activity that will generate real clients, real revenue, and build this into an actual business so I can shift to it, focus on it full time, start getting very direct feedback I can use to improve every part of this process. It is time this is no longer a project and becomes a real business, and the very uncomfortable but important action I must take, if that is the case, is cold outreach and attraction activity through organic content, reaching out to people, building an offer, and putting it out into the world. And while there's some resistance because that is uncomfortable and it means a lot of rejection, that is the next step. And it will produce the highest ROI at this point in time. So that is the focus. This has been Documenting the Climb, episode 4, the first 15 months of this process. Like I said, 15-year process. The goal of this series is really not to generate a huge amount of viewership, at least at this point in time. If you stayed till the end, I really hope you found value in this. It's mainly me talking about myself, with hopes that there's value in it that you can take and apply to your life. But the real thought here is that if I keep testing things on myself and improving myself and building a business, learning how to build a more fulfilling life for myself, and I document the whole thing, 5 years from now, people can look back on this and be blown away by where I started compared to where I get. And I just want to make sure that the entire process is documented, so that while I am learning, I can try to help others replicate the success I see and avoid the failure I experience. So hopefully there's something of value in this episode. But if you're watching it now, I hope you can take it and act on it. If you're watching it in the future, I hope my mission has been accomplished, and who I am then is way different than who I am now. So thank you for watching. I appreciate the attention. I appreciate the viewership. If you are interested in this process, you find it cool or you find it stupid, whatever, definitely comment. Tell me about it. Tell me if you learned anything valuable from this, or if you didn't. Either way, that is useful for me. And if you are a driven man in your 20s who feels very stuck, who struggles to follow through on the things they know they should do, reach out or go to progresstheory.com. I help men in their 20s who are driven but lack follow through develop consistency, the ability to follow through, and build daily structure so that they can actually improve their lives. Thank you again for watching. I wish you all the growth you're looking for in your life, and I will be back for the next Documenting the Climb episode next quarter.